bacon Mizuna salad, which is something that I would make all the time when I was in Saigon. It's kind of a cross between what I would imagine you could order in a fancy restaurant in LA and what was available for me. Then the soup is a pozole kue. It's in my head, like Mexicans and Vietnamese are the same. Like they're so many similarities, and I can't actually, you know, I can't articulate it, so I'm trying to make the food explain better what really makes sense in my head. So I was dying for pozole in Saigon. I was looking everywhere for hominy, couldn't find it, so I was actually gonna make my own hominy. And I think the bun ba hui broth is actually very similar to the pozole broth, so I'm actually really excited to try this recipe that's using this sort of lemongrass spicy broth and making it with the slow cooked pork and the hominy, but topped Vietnamese style with, you know, banana flowers and all that good stuff. And then of course the tip kha, the caramelized pork belly, caramelized mushrooms on the huaraches with the beans, Napa cabbage, a little cotija cheese, a little queso fresco. And I made some homemade salsas that are kind of a little spicy. And then for dessert, we've got some amazing ice creams, 2 vegan ones. One I'm calling Shimmy Shimmy Cocoa Snap. It's kind of like a gingerbread cookie, but in a vegan ice cream. A coconut and mung bean. And then the last one is a Café Chaud Mexicali, because it's kind of like the Café Chaud Vietnamese style with the sweetened condensed milk, but it also has a little bit of cinnamon in it because, right, Mexican, Vietnamese, same, but different. So that's the menu for tonight. This is, I'm calling the Khao Tang and Broadway menu because Khao Tang is the street I lived on in Saigon, and Broadway is a street that in Los Angeles runs right through Chinatown, which is predominantly Vietnamese, and then into East LA through Lincoln Heights, which is predominantly a mix of Asian and Latino neighborhood. And it's so interesting to me because that's the neighborhood I'm living in now, to sort of see these confluences of Vietnamese and Latino. I was just at the Asian market, and you know, the Vietnamese guy was talking to the guy loading all the vegetables in Spanish, and this sort of, you know, mix of worlds that makes perfect sense. So hopefully I can try and capture a little of that in the food. Once all the soups are out, I'm going to explain to people what goes on the top. The banana flour, which I need to cut right now. And hopefully these two things will take a long time, and by that time I will have made all the huaraches, and then the huaraches will just come out as they get made. So I've been doing these Geo home dinners for a couple years now, and usually someone hosts it in their house, and they invite 6 to 10 of their friends over, and I come up with a menu that really is whatever I'm feeling nostalgic for or wishing I could make at the moment. And it ends up being a little bit of a fusion sometimes. So what I've been doing is I'm actually trying to do these performances of home. I'm doing it by trying to create these meals that represent what home means to me, which my father, being in the State Department, moved about every 2 years as we were growing up. So home is kind of fleeting. So instead I try to kind of connect that sense of home that exists in my head, which exists through food. So in addition to our 22 guests today, we also have a couple Skype guests who are going to Skype in from Vietnam. Part of the reason I do that is because when I was living in Saigon for the last 2 years, I really just wanted to hang out and have dinner with my friends, and so I wasn't able to do that. So I had Skype dinners with my friends, and it became a it's kind of between a geographic location. So an artist friend of mine, Phung Lin from Hanoi, is going to be our Skype guest tonight. And our other very special super guest is my dad, you'll see later. And he is flown in from DC, which is kind of exciting. Because I don't actually get to see my family all that often. My mom lives in Saigon, and my dad and mom were there. Let's see, they met there in '72, and they were together for a little while before everybody had to leave. It's a meal that reminds me of one of the places I called home, or it's a meal that is something that's a confluence of places that I've lived coming together in my head. Instead of painting it, because I don't paint, it comes out as food. So this meal that I'm doing here today is kind of a Saigon meets Los Angeles. We've got a little huaraques, which are the Mexican, looks like a slipper, looks like a flip-flop. And I'm going to top that with the Vietnamese caramelized pork, which is going to be amazing. Kind of mixing those two flavors together. It's all these sort of collisions of different adventures and different memories and different places in my head. So a lot of times it's about kind of trying to do what you can with the ingredients that you have to vaguely try to authentically replicate what's in my head. So yeah, it's an experiment in failure, or an endeavor in failure, ongoing. I spent a long time trying to find fresh coconuts. They were fortunately at the Vietnamese store, but of course we don't have the exact tools for opening them, and it took a little while to get all the coconuts open. If we were in Saigon, we could just take a machete to it. Alright, I'm going to add the pork in here. Pork belly, amazing. Americans don't eat enough pork belly. Which is what makes it taste so good. So this dish is actually based on a Vietnamese dish called thịt kho, which is kind of like braised pork. But it's a really popular dish in Vietnam, and yet most Vietnamese restaurants here don't actually serve it. It's kind of like a home-cooked meal, you know? It's like what you end up eating at your grandmother's house, or, you know, more when you're visiting relatives versus what you would order in a restaurant. The coconut water. Awesome.
to the end on this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that for your
So I just put some slides right now. This is the charity that part of your money tonight goes to this charity. It's called Good Girl Dinette, and it's a group that I worked with when I was in Saigon. We went out to the Mekong Delta and worked predominantly with like orphans, disadvantaged children, and young folks. And we would make these really big. It really was just big art like that. At the Museum of Contemporary Art in Chicago, where I put a barber chair on the street corner, and I offered to shave the head of anyone who was willing to commit to peace. The idea being, if you weren't so caught up in materialism, right, that if things were simpler, we wouldn't be fighting for oil, and we wouldn't be, driving around with our lattes and our SUVs, and wouldn't be so complacent, So I'm actually was trying to create like a tangible way for people to actually engage in peace with something that was kind of symbolic, right? The Buddhist monks, they shave their heads to emulate birth. And it's this idea of like, if we get rid of our attachment to materialism, to our hair, to something so simple, then, maybe that shifts the way that we see the world and the way the world sees us. And it's, in solidarity with the soldiers in Iraq who wear a buzz cut. And it was really great because we had, 80 people shave their heads that weekend on 4th of July weekend. So, I try to connect these sort of ideas conceptually, but through performance. It's just not performance for show, it's performance for, I guess, engaging. And a lot of it's about kind of relational aesthetics and really having the people who are part of the art kind of create the space. It feels more engaging to me to be able to actually interact with people and have people talk about what peace or militarism means to them, or how they, how they think, and part of that meant like trying to approach the work differently, instead of the work being about me and my story and where I was born and how my parents happened to meet this Irish-American man and this Vietnamese woman, and it kind of shifted more to kind of conceptual work, and I started doing a lot more work exploring how Vietnam exists in the imagination of the American people, and exploring ways to get to peace. I spent about 10 or 15 years as a community organizer, like doing labor organizing and organizing protests, and I kind of needed to take a step back from that and try to do the same thing in my artwork that I was trying to do on the streets, organizing and going door to door and trying to mobilize people. And I wanted to see if I could mobilize people through their heads and their hearts in a different way. So most of my work tends to do with this idea of home and this kind of perpetual quest for home, but it also has a lot to do with just this idea of peace and community, and like how do we get to a place of peace? Like what does it look like? How do we even know how to get there if we don't know what it looks like?